and a very warm welcome back to the programme. We're with Dave Crane, who many of you, of course, will know from your time on the radio. I think you were on 99.3 Radio 2 at one point.
I've been on every station at some point.
Yeah.
Almost like collecting stations. I go on for a short amount of time, either presenting or as a guest or whatever, and then move along, like Littlest Hobo or The Incredible Hulk, depending on how you want to see it.
But my goodness, how things have changed. You were telling me that these days you're doing a show here and you're doing your life coaching here. You're a life designer, and we'll come on to the definition of that in a couple of secs. And also, you've just come back from the Maldives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now you're in that. You're in the big time, I suppose, of that corporate.
It's getting there. It's getting there. It's touching very well. I don't look for. I never advertise, and I'm constantly booked up from people who've heard about the reputation and come to me, which is great. It means that they've enjoyed what you're doing. They're telling their friends and recommending to other companies, and they're chasing you up, which is a great position to be in.
Right. And here, by the way, is something you can get, I guess, at your nearest record store. Yeah. It's called, Dave, can you read that?
No, that's what I call Hypnosis Volume 1.
Yeah, and you've unashamedly nicked the...
I haven't nicked it, it's licensed.
Oh, it's licensed.
Now that's what I call music people.
Right, so this is an EMI production.
Absolutely.
There we are.
And it's sold over 1,000 copies so far.
There's Dave Crane.
It will change your life. That's me looking younger.
Nothing wrong today with hanging nails on my finger, which is very good. Right. So tell me now, life design, and talking as you were earlier in the show about people thinking of themselves as a business. What does that all mean?
It's a mindset change, and it is a very, very powerful one. My job is to make people the best that they can be. Now, how many people deal with stress and deal with issues that prevent them being successful? One of the first things I do when I have a group of people is I say, write down your name on a bit of paper and write the letters I-N-C afterwards.
I-N-C.
I-N-C. What does that stand for? It stands for Incorporated. So now you are John Dakin Incorporated. You are in charge of you. You're the managing director of your life.
I've taken charge of my life.
Absolutely. So that means that in the future, if you want to get successful in business or successful in have better holidays or more money or anything else that you want to create.
Might even get a TV show at some point.
If you want to do that, goodness knows why. If you don't get it, who's to blame?
Yeah.
You. It means stopping blaming other people and taking it all onto yourself. And it's very empowering because so many people think that it's the company or the country or the visa or family and friends who tell you exactly the way that life should be. Well, ultimately, you have to blame for things that don't work out in your life. So when you realize that you have a choice, and the choice is sometimes not making a choice, but that is still a choice, then you're very empowered to, from this point on, choose the direction that you want to go in.
You see, I can hear you standing up in front of a group of people who've been brought into the gig in the Maldives, let's say, by some blue-chip company, and they're all terribly relaxed, and there's a bit of a holiday atmosphere, you know, school's out kind of atmosphere, and there you are suddenly, and you look different, let's face it, and you're quite powerful, and commanding with a mic, because you've learned your trade, as we all have, and you're saying all of that stuff, and there is a euphoria, and people suddenly realize, he's speaking the truth, he's quite right. But what happens 3 months later? Is it not just very temporary and ephemeral, what you do?
I would say that ultimately what you have to do is you have to act on something pretty soon for it to start to become habit and then start becoming a change in the way that you... If I do 3 hours with an audience, or even an hour with an audience, then in that time there will be something guaranteed that will allow them to change their life. And with that change, it takes them in a completely different direction.
So do you get them into specifics? I mean, do you hold people up and you talk to people as individuals? Is it a bit messianic?
No, not at all. I tend to do a motivational session with them so they can input to it. But a lot of the time they're busy writing or they're busy just taking in all the information as it comes. My job is not to babysit the whole process. My job is to basically press a reset button on everything that they've had so far, value-wise, relationship-wise, experience-wise, so then from that point they can take charge and move forward with themselves.
And you speak from experience, don't you, Dave? Because there was that point, going back to the end of the glory days of Channel 4, when things started changing, it was perhaps becoming a little bit more political, and some colleagues had suddenly decamped to go off and set up the competitive Radio 1 and Radio 2.
Yeah.
When you find yourself one day going, I don't like myself, and things have got to basically change.
I didn't say I didn't like myself. I just didn't like what was happening. I didn't like the idea that I had no control over what environments I decided to be in. And the environment that everybody was was being forced to be in. And many people are in companies like this. I'm not blaming any radio station in particular. Everybody who's watching this will have an opinion on, oh, you know what, I like going to work some days, but other days the boss is in a bad mood and we have to deal with that. So it's good and bad.
But were you able, you're talking about, you know, analysing yourself. Were you able to see yourself through the prism of other people, and perhaps you didn't quite like perhaps what you saw?
No, I didn't see it like that. I'll tell you what I saw. I found myself being helpless. I found myself not having control over where I wanted to be, and realizing that everyone around me didn't have a clue either. They're all just stumbling in the dark. And what tends to happen, and this happens very much in Dubai, and I would say a lot of other places, people think that going faster and working harder is the way to get yourself out of this. And it's not, because all you do is you run towards a brick wall faster. The idea is to stand back and take stock of where you want to be and guide where you are taking yourself. Because otherwise you end up getting panicky, and just because you're working hard, it's not about working hard, it's working smart.
But difficult, isn't it, for people who are locked into, let's say, a company unlike you? I mean, you can genuinely add INC to the end of your name, because you were a kind of, and still are, a kind of a freelance operator here. And I always think that Dubai rewards people like you disproportionately to the people who are coming here to be part of a bigger company. I mean, what opportunities do people really have by adding the superfluous INC suffix to the end of their name?
Well, not everybody wants to run their own company. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. I don't teach people or train people to step out of their comfort zone of having a 9-to-5 job or working with a company. What I do is let them have more control about how they relate to it. At the end of the day, every company that pays you a wage is paying you to do a role. Doesn't mean that when you go home that you have to do that role. It also means that you have to take, for instance, how many people in this country work 7 days a week because they want to have the edge on the competition. But if you do that for too many times, too many weeks, and you don't take a break, then that means that you lose the plot. You forget who you are. You end up physically taking the strain and mentally taking the strain, and it becomes very difficult to know why you still go to work. Whereas if you need to have that break. And that's why running yourself as a business, whether you're working in a business environment or you're working on your own and you just need it for the motivation side, makes such a big difference.
All right. Let's, when we come back for our final segment, Dave, talk how you have used hypnotherapy and hypnosis as a tool in your life designing business. And we'll be back with Dave Crane, indeed, in a couple of minutes. Don't go away.